Southeast Radio's Business Matters with Carl Fitzpatrick.
Southeast Radio.
Well, the government's newly established SME Growth Task Force met for the first time yesterday. I'll be keeping an eye on this for you over the coming months, and I intend on providing regular updates on their progress. My first guest this morning is Ray Bowe, the CEO of XCentuate, an operational management company that assists businesses with improving their overall efficiency and productivity. Ray, you spent over 28 years working across a range of diverse roles in the financial services sector before taking the leap of faith to establish XCentuate in 2017. But why did you feel that it was the right time to transition into the world of entrepreneurship?
Yeah, I had sort of ticked the box on everything that I wanted to do with Bank of Ireland and more recently New Ireland Assurance. So I had done all the roles that I'd wanted to do, and I just felt that was a good time to go. The real answer as well is I spotted a gap in the market because we brought in a product to New Ireland Assurance, a product to help sort of capacity management and planning, and it was a tremendous success. So was hoping to maybe get a 5 or 6% productivity uplift from the solution, and we ended up getting a 22% productivity uplift. And this was on the back of an operation that I was running with nearly 550 people in it that I thought was actually operating quite well. So this solution was a bit of a surprise to me. And when I looked around the market, I could see actually there's not a lot of companies using this type of solution. So that really, it all came together from the success of implementing it myself and then seeing that there wasn't that many companies using it in Ireland specifically. And it was the marriage of those two things that said this is the right time.
So Ray, talk to us about what XCentuate does and how you approach projects.
Yeah, very simply, XCentuates helps companies achieve productivity and efficiency improvements. And we have a set of solutions from one of our partner companies in that space that are tried and trusted over 15 years plus and sort of refined to kind of almost guarantee success. And the great thing, as I said earlier, is I was a practitioner. I did this before I set up the company. So I know how it works and I know how to do it well. So we're bringing the combination of a good software solution with the experience of how to implement it well to the market. And I suppose it's a combination of those two things which sort of brings success.
And who ideally would you include as your particular target market?
Yeah, so given my background and my colleagues' background, we started in financial services companies, and all the big pillar banks have the solution in place now. And then we kind of looked into insurance companies. So I'd worked in and implemented in an insurance company. And now we have an insurance company and a general insurance company using the solution. So there's a wide breadth just in financial services when you think about the funds industry, etc. So that's a market in its own right. However, the solution actually is sort of agnostic to financial services. We just happen to have our background there. We are also have plenty of conversations with, pharma companies and, food ingredients, everywhere who has sort of large back office areas, shared services. So while we started in financial services, we've certainly now starting to branch out beyond that.
And what do you find are the pain points within the financial services industry that you're brought in to overcome?
I suppose the most obvious one at the moment, and it's all over the place, is really cost reduction and efficiencies. So you have a kind of a combination of things. I mean, COVID has obviously created difficulty for everybody, but in a financial services context, it's created all of those difficulties. And it's sort of where some business areas have seen sort of volumes collapse. Others, for example, like, people who've sort of put their mortgages on hold have seen volumes go through the roof. So trying to rebalance those type of resources across financial services is a big challenge. And then, as I said, the cost reduction agenda then on the back of this type of reduction in income is a massive challenge for financial services. I mean, we've seen huge uncertainty recently about Ulster Bank and, their future in the Irish market. That'll certainly have some job loss implications. And Bank of Ireland just closed their big VR program. Actually, I think it was yesterday, looking for 1,400 people. So there's lots of cost challenges in these organisations. And I suppose the way that they're trying to identify them is through a sequence of things of which we're part of is, they will be looking to automate stuff. So we talk about the simpler tasks, robotics, etc. And then I think there'll be a big lurch back towards outsourcing. So they will re-look at, is there work that we can put offshore, etc. And then there'll always be people staying behind who are to do the more complex tasks, etc. And that's where kind of we come in terms of helping them, become more efficient and productive.
So, Ray, once you start engaging with a client, what process do you bring them through?
Yeah, the first and foremost is education. So I come from an operational background, but I was originally in IT. And when I came into operations, it took me a while to figure out what makes it work very well. So a lot of people who come to operations don't necessarily come from operational backgrounds. Sometimes the COO can come from an IT background. So the first and foremost is education. Explain why you need capacity management, how these things work, how to do it well. Then we do a kind of what we call an operational health check. So we go into the operation and we do an assessment of it, just a very short thing. We can benchmark them against through our global database about how their operation compares. And then we check and see, look, where is our solution a good fit? Now, typically it is, but it also allows us to say, look, if you implement our solution, we think you're going to get in the range of a 15 to 25% productivity improvement. And then we will do the business case and we will say to them, look, we're going to put our money where our mouth's here. We'll put fees at risk, etc. We think we can absolutely, with your cooperation, generate this result for you. It'll be multi-million euros of savings. This is what the cost will be, which will typically is a kind of a very small percentage of that. Actually, it's very good value in that regard. So this is what you're going to get out of it. So we set all that out from start to finish. So it's education right down to sort of business case assistance.
You're also an exclusive partner for Active Ops here in Ireland. Talk to us about that partnership and what that software allows you to do for clients.
Well, we came across them by accident, I'm going to say 6 or 7 years ago. And I was looking for a solution that would simply help me in my board discussions when I was asked the question, why do you need 550 people to run this operation, Ray? So I was looking for an operational set of tools that would allow me to answer questions like that and run the operation more efficiently. So we came across this company, Active Ops, and they said, look, we've been doing this for a long time. And we said, look, that looks like what we want to do. And as I said earlier, I put in a 5% productivity uplift into our business case, which would have paid for everything. And I ended up getting 22%. So, but the other thing I liked about them was their culture. They were very, very easy to deal with, wanted to kind of bring their experience without sort of stuffing it down your throat. So it was a very, very good partnership. And so I really liked them and respected them and enjoyed working with them as well. And that was a huge thing for me when I was setting up the partnership with them. I think for anybody who's setting up a business who has other partners, you have to get on well. You have to trust each other. You have to believe in each other's integrity and values. I think that's a huge part. It's easy words to say, Carl, but it's very, very difficult to find in real life.
Now, in terms of Active Ops, talk to us about the management methodology behind that.
Yeah, they have a number of different solutions. The one that we brought to New Ireland Assurance is now called Control IQ. So that's kind of capacity management and planning. And the more recent sort of desktop analytics tool that we might touch on is a productivity tool called WorkIQ. But what they typically do is, the software isn't the solution. So they provide the software. But what you then need is a set of management practices to roll that out. And that's been really tried, tested and refined over the last real decade to 15 years. So we come with a kind of a 3-month implementation cycle, which has a week-by-week sort of formula that we work through And we're in and out in 3 months rolling this formula out, which the solution is only a very small part of, the software solution, that is.
You mentioned WorkIQ. One of the challenges for many employers today, especially in this age of remote working, is how to manage staff and manage their productivity. So how does WorkIQ assist in that respect?
You're absolutely spot on. I mean, I think the big challenge now in this new world that we're living in is visibility. So employers who have all of these people working from home, or some in the office, but it's a sort of a very mixed bag, they have no real visibility about the workers are doing. So when you think about it, in the past, Carl, people were walking around the office and they could see how people were doing. They could see how people were struggling and all that. That's all gone. I mean, I like to kind of use the analogy. It's like a pilot flying his plane and most of the instruments aren't working anymore. So visibility is what I think is the real big challenge. And the solutions that we bring sort of bring visibility through real-time data. So what are people doing in real time? And then what are the insights that you can gain from that, and how can you drive productivity on the back of those insights?
And of course, another major challenge facing employers with a remote workforce is keeping that connection alive between employees and between the employees and the company itself. What are your software solutions doing in that respect?
I think that is absolutely huge, and I'm not quite sure that it's come to the fore in terms of the size of the problem that it could possibly be. But the answer to your question is we provide the instruments to see what everybody's doing from a team basis. So we're empowering a team leader, whether it's remotely or in the office, to have conversations about how the team is performing with real-time dashboards that everybody has visible. So in the old working way, we used to have them up on sort of boards around the office in real time. But now we can just display it on the screen for the video conferencing, whether it's through Teams or Zoom, so that they can have real conversations about, this is the work that we've got in, this is how we're getting through it in terms of our rates, this is what's left, this is what, our prediction for how much we'll get through today, and therefore how all our service level agreements and metrics, etc., we're performing against them. So you can have a real team-based conversation about that, and how then individuals are performing within that.
And from your experience, what are the common pitfalls that employers and businesses are making in this new world of remote working?
Oh, yeah, I think the very simple one is just this complete lack of visibility. So they really have no understanding about how people are getting on at home. And I mean, I've heard a number of different examples of people, their office is the ironing board. And I know that sounds absolutely ridiculous, but I mean, there's a lot of people who are struggling with the home working side of things. There's a lot of people that it works very well for, really well for, their childcare and all of that type of stuff, and it really works well for them. But there's a lot of people really struggling with it, and a part of it is, what are people doing? So, we tend to focus a little bit, Carl, on, it's all about the poor performers. In my experience, it's absolutely not. The poor performers make up a very small minority of the company's workforce. It's actually at the other end of the spectrum where you have some of these new issues, where it's people are, they really get their shoulder behind the wheel to a crisis, and they're working harder than ever and putting in a huge amount of effort while all of this other stuff is happening around them at home. So a lot of it is, if you can't see it, you can't measure it and you can't manage it. And therefore your employee well-being of your really productive people, who are, in the majority, they're the ones you need to mind more so than ever.
Now, of course, the government for many months have been encouraging people, where possible, to work from home. But in recent weeks, the government, outside of Dublin, let's say, have been encouraging people back into the offices, because it's a balancing act really, Ray, isn't it? There's also businesses that need to be supported in our town centres and our city centres. So on the basis of that, what's your outlook for the future of the work-based office?
We won't be going back, Carl, and I think it'll be more pronounced in the sort of the larger cities. But look, in fairness, that's where most of the big offices are. I don't think we'll ever be going back to full everybody in the office, certainly not for the foreseeable future. I mean, the Bank of Ireland, who we mentioned earlier, they definitely aren't coming back to the office until Q1 of 2021 at the earliest. there's examples of Google and Twitter who are basically saying we're looking towards the end of 2021. So whatever it's going to be, it's not going to be the same as before. I think what we are seeing in our experiences is big financial service companies, particularly in the insurance sector, saying, can we get 20 to 30% of our people back in the office by, end of quarter one, 2021, that type of time frame. And of course, that's solely hugely dependent now on how, the vector of the coronavirus goes. And in Dublin, as you know, that's not good at the moment. So there's a huge amount of uncertainty, but I know for one thing, it won't be the same. This mix of office-based workers and remote workers is here to stay for the foreseeable future.
And Ray, is the likelihood that we'll have a situation whereby companies will break their workforce into Team A and Team B, at least two teams, and then say that the office is available if they want to use it next Monday and Tuesday, and then flip it to Wednesday, Thursday and Friday the following week, as opposed to insisting that people will come into an office?
Listen, absolutely, and I think that is one of the recipes that we're seeing companies use at the moment. So that's absolutely certain. There's some people who will be very, very happy to come back to the office on a full-time basis. The younger demographic who are probably in crowded apartments, etc. They'll only be delighted to come back, and then all the people who have a lot more experience and have kind of families and stuff like that, they won't be, I'm generalizing wildly here, they won't be as keen to come back, and maybe a couple of days a week, will be the answer to that. So I think you're right in your description, but I think there'll be subtleties around the demographics within that.
And of course, the term digital transformation has been an emerging trend over the last number of years. Do you think businesses have engaged properly with it?
I think there's probably been a little bit of force to it. So digital transformation means lots of different things to lots of different people. But in the instance of us all working from home, very simply, I think it was getting the software that, first of all, people can work from home, whether it's the right laptop, the right Wi-Fi, the right security to sign in, and then the right software. So if you have to answer phones at home, those need to be upgraded to be able to work for people from home, and then voice recording and all of that type of stuff. So there's been a huge amount, and there will continue to be a huge amount of digital transformation in that space. Now, then there's much broader things, and you mentioned robotics and AI and stuff like that. So there's a broad spectrum in digital transformation, but in the first instance, I think it's getting people effectively working from home and being able to deal with that. That has probably been the biggest digital transformation and the quickest one we've seen over the last 6, 7, 8 months.
Well, if you've just tuned in, that was Ray Bowe, the CEO of XCentuate, and with so much upheaval in the workplace as a result of COVID-19, there's never been a better time to conduct an operational review and to see how technology can assist you in maximising your operational efficiency and productivity.
Southeast Radio's Business Matters with Carl Fitzpatrick.
Southeast Radio.